Hi, so I'm Parth, and this is the first lesson of Tech for Product Managers, this micro lesson series, the thing that I'm doing. And I'll share this Notion doc with you, and I'll just briefly go over what this series is about, and then we'll jump to the first lesson. So, this series is about, of course, Tech for Product Managers, as the name says. How it's different from other resources is that the lessons are going to be very short because let's face it, after TikTok and Instagram Reels, our attention spans are uh, non-existent. They're going to be pragmatic, so we're going to be focusing on real-world information and how theory relates to the real world by building on first how the real world works and how theory arises from it, rather than first teaching you theory and then fitting it to reality. And they're going to be hands on. So we're going to do a lot of exercises, a lot of thinking, a lot of pausing, and actually, doing work. Also, you're actually going to we're going to be writing code and other fancy stuff, which is going to be very much fun. So pricing, it's free, and I'll try to post one lesson per week, but I can't guarantee anything. I have a bit weird way of writing things, which you'll hopefully get accustomed to. And who am I? I'm Parth. I lead product at peakmind.in, which is a mental wellness and mental strength startup for teenagers. You can check out our website. I used to be a software engineer before switching to product management. Here's my LinkedIn and here's my email. So let's get started. Okay, so what are databases, right? Let's do an intro to databases because this was one of the most asked questions in the poll that I raised. That what, as a product manager, what do you want to learn? But before I go into writing all these jazzy SQL queries and everything, let's first try to understand what SQL is. And to first understand what SQL is, we're going to understand what a database is, and we're going to go in depth. We're going to go very first principles. We're going to go very uh, into the nitty gritties of things. And hopefully, we'll come out with a better understanding of things. Right. So, what is a database? Right. Let's Google this. So, I'm giving you time. Just pause this video here and you can Google. Yeah. So, hopefully, you've Googled this by now. So I mean, data plus base, right? Database. So, I mean, what does it evoke in your head? I mean, it feels like a place for data, right? A base for data. So now let's think, why do we need a place for data, right? Why is database even a thing? Like, why do we even think about it? What's all the uh, hype about? Well, think about it. Why do we need to? Why do we need a dedicated place for data? If you want to pause the video, you can. See, the answer is simple. We need persistence, right? We need to be able to remember things. So, remember things like what? You may ask. Well, let's take the example of a simple messaging app. We'll keep it very minimal right now. With these constraints, you can read them. Uh, Now, think about what all do we need to remember if we were to create such an app. You can pause the video here, think about it, and then unpause it. So, the answer is, well, think of me as a user. If I open the app, I need to see the following things who all have messaged me in a very basic sense. And let's say if I click on one person, that what has the conversation between that person and me been like, right? So that is what you need to remember, right? Otherwise, the application won't work. That needs to be stored somewhere. Otherwise, we'll just forget and we won't be able to know who messaged whom at what time, what happened, right? So now that we know why we need a place for data, right, to remember things, right, which is an important functionality, then let's think about what remembering really means, right? So think of it as a general concept. What does it mean to remember things? What does persistence or remembrance really mean? Even for humans, right? Well, a basic definition that I can think of is I should be able to reproduce some earlier given information when asked for it. And all of these parts of the definition are important. So the information must be given to me, right? I cannot just remember. To remember things is not just to come things out of a vacuum. It has to be given to you at some point, and you should be able to reproduce it, like tell it again, and also when asked for it, right? You should be able to do it on cue. It cannot be that you do it randomly, or sometimes you do it, sometimes you don't. So remembering typically involves two things, right? We store the information when someone gives it to us for later usage, and when we retrieve the information. So this is actually pretty important when you think about it. These are very, very basic mechanisms of any database or any remembering system, right? You need to be able to store. Now, as you'll later see, there's going to be a lot of complexities in storing things, and we'll come to why we need to store things in a certain way and why not. This is going to be very interesting. And again, retrieve, right? You need to be able to retrieve data when asked for it. And that's again going to create a lot of issues and problems, as we'll see, which will make sense of why do we need a dedicated system for database, and why Oracle is such a huge company, and why Larry Ellison is one of the richest men in the world. So now let's go full Wizard of Oz, right? So let's assume there are no databases and we have to manually be the database, right? So how do we go about being this remembering device, right? So let's think of that app again, and let's think of the core actions that we need to do for that app. So we need to be able to store and retrieve. What do we need to store? Well, whenever some user sends the message to the other user, we need to be able to store that, right? And when do we need to retrieve? We need to retrieve when user A wants to read any conversation. When if they read any conversation with some user, they need to be able to uh, we need to be able to know what the conversation was so that the user can read it. So let's tackle storage first, right? So what all do we need to store for this app? Uh, Pause this video right now and think about it. Great. Hopefully you've done this exercise. So the answer, if we are going very bare bones, we definitely need to store what message has been sent by user A to user B. So for every message, we need to store who sent it to whom, and what did they say. If we can just store this, then we can actually reproduce the functionality of the app. So let's say, for an example, two users, Butch and Fabian, if someone gets the reference, are in our app, right? So Fabian says to Butch, "Who's Zed?" And Butch says, "Zed's dead, baby. Zed's dead." So let's store this data, right? Let's store this data, and now can you think of an intuitive way to store this data? We have to store three things: user sent, sent by, sent to, and what the message is. Again and again and again. Again and again and again. Can you think of a structure in which we can store it? It's a table, right? You can just simply store it in a table. Sent by, sent to, message, and if there was one more message, we could just simply add it, right? Something like that, right? So now, if we have this way of storing data that's a table, well, this is our database, right? This is what we describe the database as. Uh, is this a database? Literally a simple table? Well, wait. Aren't we forgetting something? Well, what about retrieval, right? We forgot retrieval. We also have to retrieve things. So now, now let's say we are storing data this way. Now we have to retrieve data and show to the user in some way that looks like this, like an iPhone message. How would you think of an algorithm in which the only data you have is this, and this is the only thing you can use to reproduce a view for the user which looks like this. How would you go about doing it? Think of an algorithm to do the same, and you can pause the video, think about it, and then come back. Great. Hopefully you've thought about it. The answer is one way to do this, and here's the algorithm. And if you don't know what an algorithm is, the answer is simple. Google it. Right. Uh, Algorithm is a simple algorithm is just a set of rules, a set of sequence of steps that you must follow when solving a particular problem. So it's just like a recipe that first do X, then do Y, etc., etc. So it's simple, right? So first we find out who's using the app. Let's say it's user A. Then we find out which conversation the user A is opening the screen on, right? Let's say they're opening the screen for user B. They want to chat with user B. Then we go through our table T, which is our database, row by row. We go through each row. So, for example, sent by, we go to row 1, row 2, row 3, and we see if the sent by is A and sent to is B, then we add a blue bubble. That means that I sent the message. So I add a blue bubble here on the right. And if it is the reverse, then I add a white bubble. And if it is neither of them, then we do nothing because, these are other people's messages, right? Great. So we have created a database. That's it. We have created a way to store it that when someone sends a message, we store send to, send by, and message. When we have to retrieve it, we go in this order. And remember, I've deliberately ignored timestamp because implicitly we are going in top to bottom order. So that is implicitly assumed as the chronology of the messages. Is going to create a lot of problems later on, but well, that's for an advanced exercise. Well, that's it. We have a database, right? Okay. So now here's a fun exercise. Let's say you're a product manager and you're not aware of any databases around. Like, what's a duct tape solution you can come up with for just storing this table? Like something that you probably use already, something that has tables and is used for adding entries to tables. That's that's obviously Excel or Google Sheets, right? Wait, so if Excel has nice tables, why don't we use Excel as a database, by the way? And in the real world, like what is this SQL thing or this no SQL thing, this uh, MySQL, MongoDB, Postgres, and what are these things that I keep hearing about? Why don't we just use Excel? Like we can do this with a table, right? And we table Excel se ho jata hai. So what is it? Well, it's your homework. You can Google it, and we will Google it uh, for fun, and we'll get a lot of insights out of it. Well, so that's all for the first lesson. I hope you understood some basic things about databases. And in the next lesson, we'll jump on to some hands-on exercises. And these are two advanced exercises that I've left for you to do if you wanted to. Just think about them. You can send me an email to check if the answer is correct. And yeah, that's it.